Hello and welcome to Talking Aussie Books, a new weekly podcast shining a spotlight on Australian fiction. My name is Claudine Tonellis. As a writer and avid reader, I love chatting about books. And in this podcast, I'll chat to authors, publishers and readers, giving you, dear listener, insight into what's hot on the Australian fiction scene. So if you're looking for your next book recommendation or just want to know more about Aussie fiction writers, this podcast is for you. Grab yourself a cuppa, sit back and enjoy. Rachel Givney is an international best-selling author and filmmaker who has a list of TV and film credits to her name. She has worked on critically acclaimed Australian TV shows like Offspring, McLeod's Daughters and All Saints. Her films have graced the screens of festivals like the Sydney Film Festival and Flickerfest, amongst many others. In 2020, Rachel added novel writing to her impressive list of achievements. Her first novel, Jane in Love, was a runaway success. A romantic comedy that fans will no doubt be delighted to learn has been optioned by Amazon Studios and Denovi Pictures for a film adaptation. This year, Rachel is back with a second novel, but this time Rachel takes us to Poland in the lead up to World War II in a truly captivating novel which chronicles a young Polish woman's quest to learn the truth behind her mother's mysterious disappearance 15 years earlier. Listeners, this was a beautifully written novel that delivers a shocking twist that I absolutely did not see coming. Called The Secrets My Father Kept, this novel is a must-read, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to talk about it today with Rachel herself. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks, Claudine. Lovely to be here.
Congratulations on the publication of this stunning novel.
Thank you.
So rich in its detail, with complex, nuanced characters set against the simmering tensions of Europe on the cusp of war, where did you first conceive of the idea for this story?
I visited Krakow in my 20s, and I love historical fiction, and I'd read many World War II novels, and they're usually set in France or Germany, Berlin, Munich or Paris. And I stepped into Krakow, this beautiful medieval city, and it has this really bloody, complex history and beautiful people. Polish people are wonderfully hospitable and very kind and very generous. And I thought, if ever I'm going to write a novel set in World War II, I will set it in Krakow. Because you rarely read novels sort of set in Poland, yet Poland was such a huge theatre in World War II. So that's where the germ of the location began.
Yeah, an absolutely fascinating story. So, Rachel, for those who haven't had the pleasure of reading your beautiful book like I have, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about the story.
Like you said in your wonderful intro, so it's about this young woman who is trying to find her missing mother who disappeared 15 years ago. And it's set in Krakow, in Poland, in 1939. So total war is looming. Hitler is preparing to invade. There are tanks going up and down the border. And she's trying to find her missing mother. And standing in her way is her father, who refuses to talk about what happened. And as this total war is looming, she uncovers the truth about what happened. And she must decide if she is going to reveal this secret that her father has kept for all these years, for it's going to change her life and her father's life forever. It's a coming of age story, really, as well as finding her mother. This young woman, Marie, she sort of discovers how the world works as she looks for her mother. She encounters racism and sexism, and she falls in love. And she uncovers the lengths that people will go to protect their family. As well as finding her mother, she wants to become a doctor. Like her father is this brilliant doctor in town. When we first meet him, he saves the life of a young boy by giving him a rudimentary version of penicillin that he has, antibiotics that he has created himself in sort of his backyard lab kind of thing. And so he's this brilliant doctor, and Marie, the young woman, she wants to follow in his footsteps, but she encounters this tremendous opposition from him and from society towards following this dream. So, alongside finding out what happened to her mother, she's also discovering how the world works, and she's discovering that the world can be quite a hostile place for women who want to pursue a career, or women with ambition.
Yeah, just fascinating. There's so much of this story that speaks about the injustices women faced by virtue simply of being women. You know, their inability to pursue careers deemed only suitable to men, and also what women were forced to do to swim against that overwhelming tide of ignorance and societal expectations. So I wanted to ask you, is this something that you consciously wanted to explore, and why?
Absolutely. So that's that was what I had in mind when I was writing it all along. World War II is this really interesting time for women. It's the first time in which women en masse were required to enter the workforce. We needed women to work in the factories, to do the maths, to solve the codes in the Enigma machines. We needed women to work in the shops because all the men were at the front. And so women enter the workforce for the first time, and they realise the dignity that comes from earning a wage. And once we had a taste for it, we never went back. And World War II is really the place where the great feminist movements of the 20th century had their origins. So I think it's a fascinating time for women, at the same time entering these factories and entering the workforce sort of out of necessity for society. At the same time, there was such double standards for women pursuing a career in the novel. Marie wants to enter university to study medicine, and she encounters opposition. Her father tells her, and the man that she's trying to, the admissions officer at the university, they both tell her this simply isn't going to happen, because we're not going to waste a place on a person. We're not going to train up a person who's just going to leave the profession in a few years to start a family. And that's not an old-fashioned thing of the past either. There was an article which came out a couple of years ago, a scandal in Japanese universities which were denying female students places in their medicine courses, doctoring the results essentially of their exams, because they denying women these places because they didn't want to waste places on people who they thought were just going to leave being a doctor in a couple of years to start a family. And it's still the party line is still today that child rearing is essentially the woman's job, and or at least the burden falls mostly upon the woman. That's how we still sort of think, and so it can be difficult if you want to be a woman and you have ambition and you want to have a family as well. Does your career always have to suffer? Who knows? Hopefully not, but it does seem that's still an attitude that we sort of have today, and that's something that I really wanted to show.
Okay, so tell me about your decision to name Marie Marie. I mean, it's no coincidence, is it?
No. So Maria is a very common name in Poland. It's the Polish form of Mary, and Poland was a very Catholic country at the time. It's still a very Catholic country. But Marie's mother, the woman that Marie is looking for, when she gives birth to Marie, she calls her Marie after Marie Curie, who a lot of people think is French. She was actually Polish, the Nobel Prize winning scientist. She won the Nobel Prize twice, once for chemistry and once for physics. And Marie's mother is a great admirer of Marie Curie, and so names her daughter after Marie Curie. And that's something that Marie discovers as she's looking for her mother. She realises that her mother also loved science and medicine and chemistry, and Marie begins to understand that she has inherited her mother's talents and her mother's skills. as well, which also sort of makes her realise that, women can do these things as well. There's no reason why a woman can't pursue a career in science or medicine or STEM, and also badly done to society for denying women places in maths or engineering or chemistry or medicine, because what talent are we denying there? What discoveries are we forsaking there by wasting these brains?
So naming Marie after Marie Curie was a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Yes.
But Marie herself is blessed with a brilliant mind and a desire to become a doctor like her father. But more than that, she's a woman who won't be deterred from her goals. She knows what she wants and pursues her goals with a passion and a single-mindedness, which is frankly quite astonishing for a person of her age. But this also operates to her detriment, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So she has this brilliant mind, and she's also a teenager. She's 17 when the book starts, and so she's a little bit reckless in a wonderful way. She's got a pig-headedness and a stubbornness that will get her into trouble, but it also makes her very brave. And coupled with the fact that her father, who's sort of obsessed with, he doesn't want her to do medicine. He wants her to just get married because he knows that war is coming, and he's harboring this secret about what happened to her mother. And he knows that if the secret comes out, Marie's going to be thrown into the path of danger. Really, when war comes, he's not going to be able to protect her anymore. And so he wants her to be married so that her husband's family will be able to protect her, and he wants her to marry the wealthiest and the most Catholic person possible that he can find so that she will be safe. And he has very good reasons for doing this, but unfortunately Marie falls in love with a Jewish man, a beautiful man, and with her recklessness and her headstrongness, she converts to Judaism to be with him. Little does she know what's coming. But I loved writing Marie because she does, like you said, she has this brilliant mind.
Now, as mentioned, the novel was filled with layers of detail about life in Poland for a privileged child like Marie.
Yes.
But also about the kinds of simmering tensions that existed not only in Poland but throughout Europe at the time. So I wanted to ask you, Rachel, what research did you do to bring this story to the page?
I travelled throughout Poland multiple times to research this novel. I mentioned earlier I went there in my 20s for the first time, fell in love with the beautiful city. And then when I was actually writing the book, I went back a few times. This is before lockdown, sigh. And I visited Krakow, where the novel is set, also Warsaw, Lvov, where some of the other parts of the novel is set. That's in the present-day Ukraine, some former Prussian towns where one of the other characters, Johnny, and one of the other doctors, is from Auschwitz concentration camp, Zakopane, which is this beautiful mountain resort town on the border of Poland and Slovakia. So I went to all these places. I visited lots of apothecaries, Jewish quarters, town halls, all the places that are featured in the novel. I also visited the Jewish Holocaust Centre in Elsternwick, which is in Melbourne, which is a fabulous museum about the Holocaust with just beautiful, heartbreaking stories. There, I also studied Polish for a couple of years, which was absolutely wonderful. I said before that in Polish culture they have a wonderful tradition of showing kindness to strangers and showing hospitality to strangers. I really felt that my Polish teacher, Dzień dobry, Zbyszek, if you're listening, he read the novel a couple of times, gave me excellent feedback on Polish culture and what it would have been like in 1939 in Poland. That was wonderful. And I made some dumplings, pierogi. I made some smoked cheese, which is very popular in Poland. I had a wonderful time researching this novel, yes.
Rachel, as I mentioned earlier before we started recording, I'm a little bit embarrassed to confess that I've yet to read Jane in Love, and side note to self, I can't wait to get my hands on it. But I wondered Well, it made me ponder the fact that this book couldn't have been more different in tone and style to Jane in Love. So I wanted to ask you, was this a conscious departure?
Well, it's a great question. So for me, I see them as very similar, and I think it comes down to the way that they're sort of packaged up. But you're right, there is a difference in tone in them. So Jane in Love is about Jane Austen having to choose between her books and love. When I first read a Jane Austen novel, I read Emma when I was 15, and I fell in love with the beautiful story, the beautiful love story, and the timeless comedy. I thought, this is such a clever woman. And I grew interested in her biography. I looked it up, and I was saddened to discover that Jane Austen never married or had any children. You know, the writer of 6 of the most famous novels about love herself died a spinster. And I was considering a career as a writer myself at the time, and I grew interested in the biographies of other female writers who I admired. You know, Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women, Emily Dickinson, the poet, the Bronte sisters, even sort of Sylvia Plath, Virginia Woolf. All of these women either had disastrous romantic lives or none at all. And I began to wonder, does an artist, a writer, a female writer, need to be unhappy or single in order to create art? And if Jane Austen had to choose between the heart and the pen, what would she choose? And that's how Jane in Love was born. And once I'd written Jane in Love and I was editing it, I began to wonder this idea of the choices, the obstacles and the struggles that women face when navigating relationships, family, and a career. Those struggles. I wondered what other settings, what other locations, what other times in history could I explore this idea? And that's where Secrets My Father Kept came from, because I saw World War II, as I said before, as being this other really sort of pivotal time for women and the choices and the struggles that they face when navigating those two great things, the relationships and career.
Now, as I foreshadowed in my introduction, Jane in Love is now going to be made into a film, and I understand that you're going to be involved in that.
So my day job is I write screenplays. I work in Aussie TV mainly. I've done a bit of film and some short films and stuff as well. I'm a screenwriter in my day job. So when Amazon said, oh, look, we're interested in turning this into a film, you know, will you write the screenplay? And I said, well, yes, I'd love to. So I'm writing the screenplay for it. And it's being produced by WWII Pictures, a brilliant production company. They recently made Little Women, Greta Gerwig's Little Women. They also made the other Little Women, which was directed by an Australian woman, I think it was Gillian Armstrong, and, you know, the one that had Winona Ryder in it. They're a great production company. So they're producing it, and I'm writing the screenplay. And a brilliant Australian woman, Alyssa Down, is directing it. Yeah.
So how far down the road is that project?
So we're at script stage at the moment. So I've written a sort of a first draft of the screenplay. I've given it to the director. She's sort of given me her notes and we've workshopped it. And now it's with the producers, that's WWII Pictures. So then they're going to read it, and then we'll do like a little workshop on it with their notes. And then once they're happy with it, we send it off to Amazon, who are the money, and they'll sort of do their notes. And once they're happy with it, that they think it's in a good shape, then we'll send it out to actresses. We'll see if we can cast Jane, if we can get an actress to play Jane Austen. Once an actress is attached, then hopefully we'll go into production.
So who would you like to see cast in the role of Jane?
Well, I wonder, Claudine, do you have any suggestions yourself?
Oh, that's a really good question, Rachel. I guess for me, I would really like to see an Australian actress cast in that role.
No, well, it's not a bad suggestion. I mean, there's Margot Robbie could be very good. Yeah. She's done in an English accent a couple of times and was very good. So yeah, there's a few Australian actresses who would be great. When we were chatting with Amazon, we gave them 2 or 3 names who we sort of suggested. We said, these women are the sort of people we'd have in mind to play Jane. We suggested Saoirse Ronan, who is an Irish actress. She was actually Jo in the recent version of Little Women. Yeah. She'd be wonderful. We also suggested Brie Larson. She's an American actress. She was Captain Marvel. She won an Oscar for Room. She'd be brilliant as well. A couple of actresses like that we sort of suggested. So we're thinking somebody who's quite mature, who can obviously do an English accent, but who also has some great comic timing, because Jane Austen was very witty.
Fantastic. So, Rachel, given your experiences in the film and TV industry, and now with these 2 novels under your belt, I wondered if you had any tips to offer aspiring writers out there who listen to this podcast.
Yes, I have one tip. Don't get it right, get it written. I think that's really the only thing that you need to know if you're going to write anything. It's so much easier to sit down and edit something that you've already written, rather than to stare at a blank page and try to write something perfectly first time. I think just sit down and write. Do not worry if it's rubbish, because I guarantee once you've written it down and then, print it out or read it back on your screen, I guarantee you it won't be as bad as you think. And at least then you've got something that you can work with. And, a book or a screenplay, anything, it comes alive in the edit anyway. So you may as well just write down whatever you've got in your head at the moment, and don't get it right, get it written. If you want to be a filmmaker, I would say the same thing as well. Just go out and shoot stuff. Shoot it, edit it, watch it back and see what you've got there. It's much easier to do that than to sort of spend months planning, thinking that I've got to shoot this short film and it's got to be perfect. Don't worry about that, because things always emerge in the edit.
So true. That is such wonderful advice, Rachel. Thanks so much for that.
No, my pleasure.
So, Rachel, are you working on something else at the moment, or are you focusing on your screenplay?
The Jane in Love screenplay is taking up most of the time at the moment. Once that's done, I will start thinking about book 3, yeah.
If listeners wanted to find out more about you and your books, where could they do that?
My website, rachelgivney.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. Just Rachel Givney is my handle. Yeah.
Rachel, Secrets My Father Kept was a riveting, insightful read that I can't recommend highly enough. Thank you for a beautiful read and for chatting with me on Talking Aussie Books.
My pleasure. Thanks, Claudine.
Well, that's a wrap, folks. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or drop me a line via my Instagram at Claudine Tinellis or on my webpage, claudinetинellis.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, happy reading.